All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it's championship weekend. We are settling the differences. We are going and crowning some conference champions this weekend. Man, the football season has gone by fast here. But the man who always sees time fly every morning when he throws his alarm clock out the window, my co-host Fresh. Fresh, how you doing?
Lost a lot of alarm clocks and cell phones that way, but you got to wake up eventually. Haps, I'm doing great. Did a little reading of all my preseason conference previews, this afternoon, and well, all I got two correct matchups going into the title game of all the conferences, which had 2 out of 12 ain't bad, but it's pretty rough. Nobody predicted a lot of these outcomes, but excited to talk about the games we got coming this weekend.
Yeah, Meatloaf once said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but I don't know what he meant about 2 out of 12. So I don't even remember mine. I'd have to go back and look. All right, Fresh, let's roll with it. Let's go to the first conference championship game of the week. This game's going to be played on Friday night at 8 p.m. That's the Utah Utes playing the USC Trojans. This game is going to be played in Las Vegas. We got USC is a 2.5-point favorite right now. Over under is set at 68 points here. This is a matchup here, Fresh, because I like this matchup because we have a lot of storylines in this game. USC's only loss on the season is a 1-point loss at Utah. That game was USC was out in front in that game, and Utah comes storming back in it. Winds up being a shootout for the ages. Are we going to see more fireworks in Vegas? Are they going to light up the scoreboard like the Strip? What we got going on, Fresh? Give me something about USC Utah.
I mean, this is another great matchup. You have best defense in the Pac-12 versus the best offense. A team that has been there before in Utah. They had this exact same situation last year. They beat Oregon, and everyone's like, "Oh, Oregon's high flying, and here come Vegas. They'll get redemption." And Utah beat them even worse in the rematch. A couple weeks later, right there in Vegas, and went on to the Rose Bowl. This USC team flying high after two huge wins over UCLA and Notre Dame to finish off. Really, I honestly think Caleb Williams put him into the serious conversation for the Heisman Trophy and might actually have won it. If he can put on a show on Friday night, he might supplant himself as the trophy winner. It's going to be that kind of wills though, and I kind of great defense from Kyle Whittingham, great offense from Lincoln Riley, and looking at the replay, in the of the last game, looking at the preview, and just sort of thinking like what could happen in this ball game. The one thing that really stunned me was this is a very similar setup to the 2017 Rose Bowl between Georgia and Oklahoma. Oklahoma comes in with the flashy quarterback, the high explosive offense, not much of a defense, and Georgia came into that with an offense that's kind of underregarded. Had times where they were great, had times where they kind of inconsistent, but the defense is really good, and no one really knew what to expect. Oklahoma, burst out to the huge lead under Lincoln Riley and Baker Mayfield, and then as the game went on, Georgia just kept churning away, found a way to get stops, took it to overtime, and won the football game late. Nothing spectacular, except they ran the ball and played defense in the second half. And I kind of think that's the exact same philosophy that happened in the first game, and I think it's going to happen in this one, where that Utah defense is going to keep them in the football game all for the full 4 quarters. They're going to make it a ball game, and then Kincaid, Thomas, Rising from that Utah offense will be able to move the football against a pretty porous defense there for the Trojans. They give up a ton of yards and a ton of points, but they do get turnovers that kind of minimizes that defects and makes up and covers for them a little bit. They were able to get those interceptions, those fumbles that make up for a lot of chunk plays and yards and points they do give up. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how USC handles the moment, though. Like, none of these players have been in this situation. They had 2 great games so far, but this is a championship on the line. Caleb Williams hasn't played in one. Jordan Addison is the only one I think that actually truly played in the conference title game when he played last year with Pitt. Well, maybe Travis Dye's not playing with Oregon, so he can't be counted in this football game. There's a lot of guys who have not been in this moment. Lincoln Riley, as the head coach, has, but players have not. How are they going to handle the excitement, the glitz, the glamour, everybody on them? Utah, there's almost a good chunk of this team, including Phillips in the secondary, and then most of those guys in the secondary actually have been here before. They went through this last year. They played the Rose Bowl. They played the Pac-12 title game. They won it when nobody gave them a chance. They had that swagger, that professionalism, if you will, about them that I think will pay off dividends in the football game. USC has everything in front of them. If they come into this football game and just take care of business, they don't have to win sexy, in my opinion. They just need to win. If they win, they're probably going to the playoff. Um, and so actually adds to the pressure of they can't bleep up. If they trip up, unlike other teams like Michigan, TCU, or Georgia, who if they lose, they actually technically maybe still could get in the playoff. USC doesn't have that luxury because they already lost one game. And if they lose to Utah twice, that's the biggest blessing in the world for Ohio State and Alabama. And I really think the entire state of Ohio and all those Ohio State Buckeye fans in Florida and Arizona, all across the country, they're probably bigger Utah fans than the Utah fans this week. Um, when it all comes down to it, I just think that Caleb Williams, the way he's played, the way the offense has progressed all season long, they just have enough to get it done. I don't think Utah does not have the explosiveness or veteran leadership on defense like they had last year. And I think USC continues to build a wave of momentum. They will not dominate, but Caleb Williams will find a way to put up some touchdowns and get this victory for USC and keep them on the national stage. But the one thing to keep an eye on, how that Utah offensive line plays. If they are able to control the line of scrimmage, protect Rising, let them get the ball to Kincaid and the receivers, and let Thomas and the running backs move, that could be the biggest deciding factor. Where does that USC defensive line? How do they get pressure? And if they're being manhandled, they might be able to kill the clock and find ways to keep Williams and that offense off on the sideline. But I think in the end, USC finds a way to get it done. They get just enough points. They win the Pac-12 and move on most likely to the playoff.
So if USC wins, to me, they're definitely in. If they win this game, they deserve to be in the playoff. They're a one-loss conference championship team, and they've gotten revenge for the one loss they have on the season. Interesting for when I was looking at Utah here, Fresh, one of the interesting things I saw, Tavion Thomas did not play last week versus Colorado. The starting running back was Micah Bernard. Tavion Thomas has been in and out of the doghouse this year, has only 142 carries. Remember at the beginning of the year, they were kind of holding him out. Again, we don't have injury reports here, so they're listing him as still active. So I don't know if he's done something else to get himself in the doghouse here. It was weird that he didn't play in that Colorado game to me. It was a little weird they didn't play. Now, Colorado's not a very good team. Maybe they decided, hey, we're not going to make him run. Maybe he was a little bit banged up. Maybe we're going to say, no, we're playing for a conference title. It just was a little shocking they didn't get any carries in that game to me. Cameron Rising has done exactly what we thought he would do this year. He takes care of the football. He makes the smart pass, and he utilizes Kincaid quite a bit there. I really like Dalton Kincaid. I know me and you have talked about this throughout the year. I think Dalton Kincaid is one of the most disrespected tight ends in the country. I don't think he gets enough love that he should. That dude is a beast over there in Utah. For me, USC, yeah, USC is going to put up points. We saw earlier in the year, Utah was able to hang with USC. If Utah is able to go punch for punch with them, then I think the Trojans may be in trouble here. But I really think that USC's offensive firepower will eventually overwhelm the Utah defense. The one thing, if you're going to really watch this, if you want to know how this game's going to get going, I'm watching Clark Phillips III, 6 interceptions on the year, versus Addison. That is the marquee matchup. Addison's maybe top 3 wide receiver in the country. Clark Phillips, top 3 cornerback in the country. Both these guys are going to be playing football on Sunday next year. These are great players here. Make sure when you're watching this game, you highlight those 2 players. Take a look at them. Look at that matchup. Who's winning that matchup? Is Caleb Williams finding Addison? Is he finding Jordan Addison down the field? If he's throwing to the opposite side of the field. Last year, in the first round of the playoffs, Sauce Gardner, Alabama didn't throw a single pass to his side of the field. He shut down the entire field. Now, Alabama had the skill positions on the other side to make it Cincinnati pay for it. But it's interesting to see if Caleb Williams is able to win that matchup there. Is he able to deliver the ball to Addison in there? I was impressed with Austin Jones last week versus Notre Dame. I'm not going to call him out again this year. He looked really, really good in this game. Expect him to get a lot more carries going in, especially with how he played against that Notre Dame defense. I think Notre Dame and Utah have a similar type of defense there. So I'm going to take the Trojans as well. I like the Trojans and the points here. I think USC is going to win by a touchdown this game.
Yeah, I mean, the great point there about Thomas being in the doghouse all year long, and you kind of hope when you kind of knew what that matchup was going to be, and you're playing Colorado at that point, you save your guys, get them healthy. If there's every injury concern, so you wanted some rest, get them ready for this game because you're going to need all your horses take on the Trojans. I picked this matchup at the very beginning of the year, USC, Utah. I had Utah winning the first one in my projections, and I figured USC was winning this one, so I got to stick with them. But it should be an exciting game to kick off a great championship weekend.
All right, let me go to the next game. This game I'm probably the most excited for here, Fresh, because I got some good stuff on this one. Let's go all the way out to the Mountain West, Boise, Idaho. The Fresno State Bulldogs facing the Boise State Broncos here. This is an interesting one because Fresno State lost to Boise. They're 1-4 on the season. They pulled off 7 straight wins after that loss. I went back, Fresh, and I watched the consolidated game tape of that matchup. And this game was extremely close going into about the fourth quarter here. And then Boise State wound up pulling away in that game. One of the things that stood out to me, though, is Fresno State had 6 starters out for that matchup against Boise State in that game. One of the key ones, Jake Haener. Jake Haener suffered an injury at the beginning of the year. Logan Fife came in. Haener's back. Haener's playing. He's been exactly what we thought he had been. Guys, he didn't have a full season. If you're listening to this podcast, you want to go back and look at maybe what Haener did last year. We talked about Jake Haener to being one of the best quarterbacks in the country that you didn't hear about. Like I said earlier about Dalton Kincaid, Haener was less heralded last year, was throwing the ball all over the field, was one of the nation's leading passers. Him and Jordan Mims are a lethal attack in that backfield. You got that. Haener throwing the ball. He's got a great arm. Mims all over the place, averaging 4.9 yards a carry, 14 touchdowns in the year. Been one of their best rushers. Jalen Morano Copper, great wide receiver over there. He was a little banged up as well, but there's some more weapons as well. I'm interested about this Fresno State team because they, like I said, they really hung tough with the Broncos. Right now, that spread, Fresh, is a 3-point Boise State favorite. That's home field. That's home field. So Vegas, to me, is saying that on a neutral site, these teams are dead even. Also looking at it, over-under set at 54 points here. I don't know, Fresh. I got a lot of things. Taylon Green for Boise State. Love this kid as a player. He jumped right off the film when I was watching that compressed game here. He was really great at it. They have 2 really good running backs, though. Kalani and Genti, both of them, Genti being a freshman from Texas, both of those guys were running all through the Fresno State defense. So if they can't figure out a way to stop that ground attack for Boise State, and Green's able to do stuff with his legs as well, I don't know, man. This could get ugly quick, fast, and in a hurry, or it could be the most entertaining game of the weekend. What say you?
Well, this is the other matchup that I had picked in the preseason. I figured these two teams were on a collision course for in the championship game. They're going to meet in the regular season, see how that played out, and then navigate themselves back, and they both did. Boise State and Fresno State both had those rough starts. You talk about Haener being out for Fresno State at the beginning of the year. Boise State also had a very sluggish start to the season. Really took them a while to get their stride offensively and defensively, and they've kind of changed their motif. Usually, they're much more of a crazy play, very dynamic offense, and a lot of window dressing and motion. This year, it's Helani from the backfield, more of a power running game, and then play good defense, and then hit the play action off of that. It's been a different kind of team, different kind of offense. They've really changed it around the past year to really be to use their skill players the best they possibly can. Helani's going to be the key. Ball control, keep Haener in that offense on the sideline, maintain possession, maintain pace. You don't want to get in a track meet, especially with that offense. You mentioned the 6 stars being at early in the year and then really getting steam as the season's progressed. You're playing a team that actually might be more healthy because they have rest. They haven't played as much. They have more game times. Not so much game time under their legs at the end of the season. So they're going to come out, guns blazing. They have nothing to lose. Nobody gives them a shot. This game's in Boise. You go 8-0. Have a great year in the regular season and just steamroll people, if you will. So this is going to be the focus point. Sad thing though is that Haener did have that rough, senior year being out. what's his legacy at Fresno? He came back and he actually tried to transfer after last year's solid season, decided to come back and play for Jeff Tedford and with the rest of the returning players on offense. And you get dinged up, you kind of miss out. People kind of start wondering. You've only thrown for 2,400 yards and 17 touchdowns, which being out for the first couple of games is actually a pretty good accomplishment. What is going to be the legacy though of winning that conference title? You have a chance right in front of you. Where's that resurgence going to come from? Um, you're both scoring 30 points a game, but your defense has got to help you out in this football game. They are giving up well over 20. You're going against a Boise State team's giving up 17 points a game. Your defense has got to find some stops. They've got to be in that front seven, lock down the A gap, lock down the B gap, run, pursue, make tackles. You cannot allow broken tackles. You cannot allow excessive plays to continue. You've got to shut it down at the point of contact, get the football back to Hayner in that offense. Um, it's a crapshoot, like you mentioned. If it's a neutral field, it'd be a push. I picked Fresno State to win the league back in August, and I'm going to stick with it. Fresno State Bulldogs go on the road, get the Mountain West title. Jake Hayner on to bigger and better things, and really has a big ball game and helps push him toward NFL draft stock up in the right direction.
Damn it, Fresh. I God, I got to really work on my Hank Hill impersonation here and just be like, damn it, Bobby. All right, Fresh, you're stealing my picks here. I was so excited because I did all this research on this game, and I actually went further than I normally do on a game. I even found this David Perales here, 10.5 sacks, has got an interception on your senior defensive end. Kid's a beast. And the other big thing I looked at this here, Fresh, Fresno. I was a little I went back and I looked at their last game as well. I looked at how they played Wyoming. Wyoming is a pretty darn good football team over there in the Mountain West. And they struggled to move the football against the Cowboys. So that kind of gave me a sense of pause there for a second. Boise State, electric offense. Green's going to be a beast. I really like him. I think that Boise State's going to be going on to bigger and better things. But I like Fresno State in this game as well here. I really sitting there going, I think people are sleeping on the Bulldogs there, and I think they're going to come back, and everyone's going to go on Sunday and be like, wow, did you see that Fresno Boise game? I think it's going to be one of the best games of the weekend.
That Wyoming comparison is a pretty good one. If you look at the way Fresno State slaughtered them the last week of the season, Boise went to Wyoming, went to Laramie. It was a 2017 football game. They kind of struggled their way through it and really didn't get a good pace until the very end of the game, and they're finally able to put it away. It's a great comparison, a great matchup if you're looking for a common opponent.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. So let's go to a couple of quick hits real here because both these we kind of feel like we can have some stuff to talk about, but ACC has no chance of making the playoffs. But let's go to the ACC title game in Charlotte, North Carolina. Come on and raise up. Clemson is a 7.5 point favorite. Over under is set at 63.5 there. Looking at this game here, Fresh, North Carolina, I get the sense is like limping into this game. They had such a great year, and then they have that close win against Virginia. They have a close win at Wake Forest. Then they lose to Georgia Tech. Then they lose to NC State. I feel like they're trending in the wrong direction. Go ahead, Fresh. I just hear the cat meow, so I guess that means that my time of talking is done.
When Champ agrees that the Tar Heels are struggling, it's time. The Tar Heels, something happened in the last 4 games of the season. I don't know, it hit November, and this team the offense isn't scoring enough points, but the defense is actually stopping some people. They're not giving up 50 points a game. It's the weirdest thing where they didn't give up a ton to Georgia Tech, but the offense didn't score. Last week, the defense wasn't, wide open gate with nothing to, with no opposition whatsoever, but the offense just couldn't put up touchdowns when they had to. It's something I can't tell if is there injuries in play or people just scheming? Is the play calling wrong? Like, where's the disconnect with this UNC offense? They've been putting up points at a rapid rate, and now they're just mailing it in. People maybe is Drake May giving off tells when he comes to the line of scrimmage, or he's making just one read and getting flustered with coverages, or someone throwing. They must be throwing him different looks. Maybe put too many guys in the box and taking away his legs and forcing him to throw. The only thing I can see is they're forcing him to throw more with his legs. Give him that ability to be on that perimeter, making the defensive backs come up and then throw from there, or having their eyes at him and not covering a receiver if they get certain coverages. I think the scheme right now is they're keeping him in the pocket, not letting him use his legs, forcing him to actually throw. And that's where he's won maybe one read, maybe two read, and then just eating it. Just not the same quarterback. And you got to give a ton of credit, not to the defense coordinators they played the past few weeks, but also the players for understanding the scheme and actually playing to that level. Coaches can coach all they want, but if the players aren't out there actually executing the schemes, getting the edge, setting the edge protection, not getting too far upfield on their pass rush, locking down. Sometimes the best pass rush is going 3 or 4 yards and forming a perimeter. You don't have to get home on the quarterback. You just got to contain them, especially if they're mobile, and let the secondary sort of do what they have to do from there. They're putting players that they're how does Clemson take all that evidence of, defensive success and use the players that they have that all should be drafted high and make them perform? Because that side of the football has been less than inspiring all season long. We expected big things, and they have underwhelmed at a drastic rate. Um, it this game right now is going to come down to that matchup right there. Clemson's defense, UNC's offense. Where does Breezy? Where does Simpson? Where does Jeremiah Trotter, and where's that secondary come into play? How do they dictate, or are they going to be dictated to by the UNC offense? On the other side, what does Gene Chizik have for DJU and Will Shipley? You've got to know, hey, we've got to stop the run. If I'm going to try to stop them, I'm going to force DJU to throw the football because they don't have any dynamic receivers. They don't have dynamic tight end. It's Shipley, and that's it. You've got to take him away. If you focus on him and lock it down and actually tackle at the point of contact, you are going to limit Clemson's possessions, limit their offense, and then wait for them to make a turnover or two in your own end of the field. Put the pressure on them. Dictate them. You guys have a legacy to build. You still have a chance of making the Orange Bowl if you somehow beat Clemson, and they are a very beatable football team. This is not the Clemson. You cannot walk out there and see that tiger paw on the helmet and think they're just amazing. That Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, any of those star receivers are going to walk through that door. None of them are coming. There's no one on that team. And honestly, Will Shipley does not really truly terrify me either. He's a good player, but he is not an all-world beater. You have got to come in and play with a reckless abandon. You have nothing to lose. You've played terrible the past couple of weeks. You can play better. We've seen you guys play better offensively and defensively. If you have nothing else left in the tank, that's one thing. But you've got to, if you have a chance of winning conference championship, you should never have an excuse of, man, we're tired, or man, we just don't have enough. You have one game for all right now. You win a ring, you win a title. That's a lot. That's a big deal. Something that hasn't happened at UNC since 1980. They have not won a football conference championship since 1980. You have a chance in front of you to take care of business and get it done. Offensively, Drake May, you've got to be better. Defensively, you got to tackle the point of contact. You know you're going to give up some points. You just cannot give up the 30 plus. That's where you've got to find ways to plug the game. Force field goals, not touchdowns. Limit this offense that's not explosive. In the end, I picked Clemson to go to the Orange Bowl. I'm going to stick with it. Somehow they're going to find a way to get it done, but it's not going to be a fun one.
So all this started in November. I don't know. Maybe they're engaging some sort of activity that happens in November. I don't know. People are weird. But I did find one thing here, Fresh, that is interesting with Drake May. Drake May, when he completes less than 60% of his passes, North Carolina is 0-3 on the season here. He needs to really make sure that he's taking the easy throws that Clemson's going to give him. Don't worry about getting everything back on a single play. Make sure you keep things in front of him. Take what the defense gives you. Don't try to win that game completely by yourself. Josh Downs has got to be better too. I need to see a little bit more out of him than I've seen in the last couple of weeks. I really like Josh Downs. I think he's a great wide receiver, 83 catches, over 900 yards and 11 touchdowns. But he had the 3-touchdown game against Wake Forest, and then since then he's had 9 catches and 82 yards, no touchdowns. If UNC wants to win this football game, he's got to have a better game. And if Clemson's going to win here, and I agree with you, Clemson's a very beatable football team. This is not a Tiger football team that I think is, I don't know. I think if they played outside of the ACC, I think they would still probably have another loss as well. I'm not saying they're a bad football team. I just don't think that they're a great, like they used to be, Clemson team. I need to see Miles get a little more sacks after it. I need to see Miles Murphy do a little bit more than what he's done. Dude's only got 37 tackles and 6.5 sacks on the year. And we were talking about this guy being one of the best defenders in the country at the beginning of the season. Where you at, man? I don't know. You know what, Fresh? What the heck? It's the end of the season. This is one of the last games that we're picking. Give me the Tar Heels in this game. I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm going against what you say here. Uh, I'll take UNC in 7.5 in this game. I think that 63 number is really high. That
Yeah,
63 is
63 is real
really,
high.
really high. So, but
Oh,
we'll see. All right, Fresh. Let's go to up north to Indianapolis, Big Ten championship game. The Purdue Boilermakers. No one wanted to win the West of the Big Ten this year, but Purdue, you lucked into it with Aiden O'Connell, your quarterback. The Michigan Wolverines beating Ohio State for the second straight year. I won't dwell on that anymore, but making the Big Ten title game as well. Fresh, is there a way Purdue wins this game? I know they got some talent on that offense there for Purdue, but I just don't think they got the hogs to stop the running attack.
well, if you look at that game last week, there were chances early. Ohio State was kind of in the football game. In the middle of third quarter, turnover started happening, and they couldn't run the football. Purdue is going to have to find ways to run the football, or at least control and possess the football. And by that, sometimes use the passing game as a running game. Short little, jet screens, 2, 3, 4 yards. Keep the clock going. Keep that Michigan defense on the field. Spread them out as best as possible. But you're going to have to be able to keep JJ McCarthy and those Wolverines on the sideline because that offense, they will eventually wear you down. It's not going to be the first quarter. It's not going to be the second quarter. It's going to be the third, and it's going to be especially the fourth, where that pounding of the offensive line is going to eventually wear you down. Play action is going to hit you when you're expecting to run. They're going to hit big plays. If you looked at the football game early on, it wasn't really the running game. It was the suspense of the running game for Michigan. They had a couple play action passes. They had the halfback pass for a touchdown. Um, and then as the game wore on, the guys were tired. They were scrambling. They were desperate. That's when the big run started coming late in the third and the fourth quarter. You've just got to play sound defense if you're Purdue, but Purdue's offense has got to be a much more bigger factor. You've got to find a way to score touchdowns, control the clock, put the pressure on Michigan. What Illinois did early is they jumped at them early, and they were able to handle the clock, handle time possession, and keep Michigan on the sideline and then play stout defense. That's the only way I can really see them getting a way to get through this football game. O'Connell playing the game of his life, but them not making mistakes and then playing defense and finding ways to score touchdowns. You cannot kick field goals if you want to pull off the upset. If I'm Michigan, I mean, I don't know Blake Corum's health status right now. I I don't think you need to even dress him for this football game. Even if there's a doubt that he could play, I think you'll be okay not playing Blake Corum. You show you were good last week. Get him healthy. Give him another 3 to 4 weeks to get ready for the playoff. Because you'll definitely need him when you get into that playoff situation. I think Michigan has enough talent offensively and defensively to make this an easy affair for the fans in the stands. But we've seen crazy things happen. Purdue might have a chance, but I think Michigan wins and they win big and they cover.
Yeah. I'm trying to talk myself into Purdue more and more and seeing if there's any way, shape, or form that they could win this football game. The only thing that gave me hope is at times during the season, and I went over to, again, common opponent here. I went to the Purdue Illinois game in this game. Purdue wound up handing Illinois their first loss of the season. The Boilermakers also were able to hold Chase Brown to 98 yards rushing, only averaged 4.3 yards a carry, and they put the game into Tommy DeVito's hands. Now, kid still threw for 201 yards there, and Chase Brown still had 2 short rushing touchdowns. But you saw, like, there's kind of this recipe for Purdue to beat that team. I'm going to say that you have to kind of do the exact same team. I think you're going to need a big game out of the defense. I think you're going to need a big game out of the wide receivers on Purdue. Aiden O'Connell is going to have to play the game of his life. Now, there's been times Aiden O'Connell threw for 365 yards against the Penn State defense. He threw earlier in this year for 391 yards against Nebraska. Nebraska's not very good. But then you take a look at 390 or 360 against Maryland as well. All of those games, Aiden O'Connell took it amongst himself. What we're going to need to see if Purdue's going to have any chance whatsoever, which I don't think that they're going to have one at all, because I'm looking at this here fresh. Michigan is a 16.5 point favorite. Purdue's going to have to channel that bowl game last year against Tennessee. And Purdue just put up point after point after point and said, you know what? Let's turn this into a track meet and force you to keep up with us. If Purdue wants to win this game, they got to score. They got to score fast. They got to score touchdowns, not field goals. And they got to really put the pressure on Michigan to keep up with them. Make Michigan, if you can stop them, if you got a turnover there, you need to capitalize, put some points on there. I don't think they can do that. We're talking about Tennessee's defense from last year to Michigan's defense this year. Michigan is a way better defense there. But if you want to say, like, what would give Purdue a chance, I would say that's got to be it. That's got to be their game plan. Michigan is got a lot of talent. McCarthy proved last weekend that he's got the ability to throw the ball. He was great when he had to move out of the pocket and run. He showed he had the talent to do that as well. I'll be interested to see Corum. I'll be interested to see him. I think for him, I think he needs to be able to go. I think for his mental well-being, I think he needs to be able to go. Because like you said, they're going to need him. I don't care if you're only playing the first quarter. And let other guys handle it after that plays. But at the same time, too, like, I think Corum is maybe starting to get into his head a little bit, and especially with knee injuries, that gets a little nerve-wracking for me. But I think Michigan is going to win this big, and they're going on to the playoff for the second straight year.
It's a great comparison of that Purdue Illinois game, very similar to the Purdue Minnesota game, where they went in on the road and shut down pretty good rushing attacks in Muhammad Ibrahim and Chase Brown.
Ibrahim didn't play in that game.
All right, well, Ibrahim, but still, they have a stable running back, so they're able to take out a veteran team.
They do.
And going on the road, both those, playing ugly football but winning. None of those games were pretty, but they found ways to play defense and run the football. But then the other side of it is they had clunkers versus Iowa and Wisconsin, where they got smoked against offenses that are putrid. So it's just like, which Purdue team offensively, defensively is going to show up on that Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think Purdue's going to have to play the game of their life. They're going to have to play the game of their life to win that game. So, and who knows? Then things would get really interesting on that one, but I don't see it happening. I really don't. All right, Fresh, let's go all the way down. Go down to the American Athletic Conference. The UCF Knights traveling to the Tulane Green Wave. UCF 6-2, Tulane 7-1 in conference, 9-3 for UCF, 10-2 for Tulane. Whew, this is an interesting one here, Fresh. Tulane is a 4-point favorite in here. Over-under set at 56.5. Man, this is going to be an interesting one because you take a look at it. 3 weeks ago, these teams played. November 12th at Tulane. UCF gets the win, 38-31. Rematch time. I like these rematch conference title games. So go ahead, Fresh. What you got for this one?
Well, I think it's just the one thing they all have to worry about, and actually probably put outside their minds, because that might be too much of a painful moment, is the winner of this game is going to a New Year's Six Bowl. And that could be not just a conference championship on the line, but a chance to really put your program in a great standing. Does that make someone be tight? Does someone really just not play to their full natural ability? Do they get locked up thinking that the pressure's there? That's the one thing you need to take in, especially for Tulane. UCF, some of these players, they've kind of expected it. They've been around playing for conference championships. Tulane's coming. They're the dark horse. They're the Cinderella this year. And some of those players sort of do they let the feelings and do they get into their feelings, get in the moment too much? After this matchup, 3 weeks ago, I think, 3 weeks ago, where UCF came in, got up to a great start, ended up at about 8 minutes to go in the third quarter, up 31-10, and let Tulane sort of chip away and get back in the ballgame before they were able to seal it 38-31. You kind of feel like UCF kind of thought they had it, the rest of it in the bag. Next week they played Navy, stunk up the yard, lost to Navy, and then played a lowly USF team last week. Tulane, on the other hand, took that comeback, built momentum off of it, went and stopped SMU, who had been at that point coming off a couple of great offensive efforts, and they shut them down. And then I think in the biggest upset, went up to Cincinnati and took out the Bearcats, the two-time defending champions, shut them down, and supplanted themselves in the AAC title game. This Tulane team could have faded. We had kind of actually, I think most have expected them to drop down after that game. Like, all right, they finally had the meat of their schedule last the end there, and they lose at home to UCF. The Cinderella, the slippers off, here it comes, and they found ways to rebound and fight through it. Which of those teams is going to show up? That we're going to get the good UCF team that actually won the football game, or we're going to get the Tulane team that played the second half strong in the past two games? That's going to be a pretty intriguing story as we move through it. The one key player, though, John Rice Plumlee, the leading passer, obviously, for UCF, and the leading rusher. When your quarterback is your leading rusher and your leading passer, that's a good thing. All right, you trust the guy, you can get it done. He's a playmaker, but where have you developed a running back in case he does go down, or you just have a variety in the backfield to help you, balance out the offense? That's the biggest question. If you key on that quarterback and you're able to tackle the point of contact, who else is going to step up for the UCF offense? Because if you watch that Navy football game, nobody else helped him. Ken Niumatalolo and that defense played great. They locked him down. They kept him out of the end zone, and they allowed their offense to sort of kill the clock, find just enough points, and win the football game. Does Tulane keep that same momentum? They've already played them once. It's very tough to beat the same team twice. You obviously have home field advantage again in this matchup. Do you find the ways to feed up the crowd a little bit, learn from where you were, not get up to such a slow start, not get up to the jitters? But if Plumlee gets loose and he has a football game, they could be in for a long day, because then that running attack turns into play action, turns to receivers opening up. His ability on the edge with his legs, very similar to Caleb Williams. Defensive backs start looking in the backfield and not playing coverage, and that's where they get exposed down the field. Think of Gus Malzahn. He loves to run the football. He loves mobile quarterbacks that open up the passing game. That's exactly the attack they're going to come at. He's coached and won championships before. He's played in big games. Where will Willie Fritz and his coaching ability come in? Will he coach tight? Will he coach loose? He did get a vote of confidence. I think it was great for him to announce that he wants to stay at Tulane. He has no desire to leave. And he was rumored at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech kept the interim title, and they removed that and named Brent Key the head coach. Willie Fritz now is the coach. That shadow, that cloud over the program is now gone. If that had lasted through the week, that might have actually been much more of a factor in this football game. You kind of look at Ole Miss, the whole Lane Kiffin thing. I really think that impacted them down the stretch of who's going to be our coach. Is he going to stay? Is he going to remain? What's going to happen? This Tulane team, I think, was given second life also. But in the end, I picked UCF a long time ago. I've got to go with the Knights. I think that they've just a little more veteran leadership. They're a little more ready for the moment. They find ways to squeak it out. This will be another amazing football game going back and forth all afternoon. But the Knights find a way to get another win at Tulane and book their ticket to go on to the New Year's Six, and they're going to play Penn State in the Cotton Bowl.
Fresh, the problem I kept having is that it's simple math here, Fresh. And when I looked at John Rice Plumlee for UCF, kid's been electric all year long, but he's struggled at times. He's really struggled in that Navy game. You look at Tulane, there we have Michael Pratt. They have Tajay Spears. Going back to game 3 weeks ago, Tajay Spears had 8 carries for 130 yards. Now, he had a 70-yard run in there, so I took that one out, but he's still averaging 8.5 yards a carry in that game. I think Tulane got down early in that game and had to resort to throwing the football. So you take a look at Michael Pratt. He's had a great year, 21 touchdowns on the year, 4 interceptions. What I really want to see in this game, whether or not Tulane is going to be able to get some revenge on that loss on Gus Malzahn, is the two senior wide receivers, Shane Wyatt and Deuce Watts. Both of them are seniors this year. This is their last game for whether or not you're going to play in the bowl. They'll probably play in a bowl game here. But do you go out? This is the last game you're playing in front of your home crowd. Do you go out and ball out in this game? Do you guys go out and make a difference? Are you the difference makers? Because I'm trying to look at UCF, and I'm looking at, is it Javon Baker? Is it going to be R.J. Harvey? Which one of these guys is going to step up and take the burden off of John Rice Plumlee? One of them have to do it. I'm going Tulane, one, because I can't stand Gus Malzahn, so screw Gus Malzahn. Two, I kind of want Tulane to win this game because I feel like they are that team of destiny this year, just similar to how Cincinnati was last year. And the fact that I just think it'd be cool if we saw the Tulane Green Wave in a New Year's Six bowl game. Yeah, they might get boat raced by Penn State, but who cares? Let's let's give the kids a chance. Like everyone thought Boise State was going to get boat raced by Oklahoma, and they wound up having one of the best upsets ever. So I don't know here, Fresh. I think everyone is kind of pulling for UCF for some reason, but I'm going with the Tulane Green Wave in this game. Give me them. All right, let's go on. Let's go to Atlanta. Georgia Bulldogs facing the LSU Tigers. Georgia is a 17.5 point favorite. Over under set 51 in this game here, Fresh. Listen, I tried. I tried really, really hard. I tried to find something for LSU and to give LSU some hope in this game. I got nothing. I got very little. So go ahead, resident Georgia fan. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, when it comes to SEC championship games, this is actually the second most common matchup in the history of it. You have Alabama, Florida, and LSU, Georgia. Um, the Tigers do own it, 3-1 in the SEC championship game. They've won the last two matchups overall against Georgia. This is not the same LSU Tiger team that they have faced in the past. I will say that right now. There's definitely a talent gap. They are growing. I think they're way ahead of schedule. They have played well, but that loss to Texas A&M was a major clunker, offensively and defensively. They just could not get out of the way. And when you let an A&M team who's been having trouble all year long that score um, at will almost, it says that your team was either looking way ahead to this ball game, or you're a little overconfident in your abilities that maybe A&M was just that bad, and you weren't really focused to finish the football game. Jalen Daniels did get dinged up in that football game. He wasn't a walking boot earlier in the week. Um, at this point, I still expect him to play. I think the team does too, but obviously the walking boot is for precautionary reasons to keep him healthy. But he is the dynamic effort on that Tiger offense. With his legs, with his arm, with his vision, his ability to be outside the pocket and move the football all year long has really kept that offense on pace and on track and on schedule to score and to move the football. There's definitely been learning curves for that entire offense as the season's gone on. It was not the same philosophy that they've had in the past. So playmakers like Keishawn Buttes had to learn and adapt to a different role. They have a stable of four good running backs who have been um, com- very considerate of each other. They all bring different little things to the ball game where the offense has been able to work with their skill sets to keep the ball moving and the points on the board. The offensive line still dealing with some lack of cohesiveness at times. As you saw in that opener, especially versus Florida State, they had guys who they were just piecing guys together, and it's been kind of the same unit who works, jigsaw puzzle, who fits for the right time, the right game, and who's seeing what the quarterback and the offense should be seeing to make the right blocks and the right keys. That'll continue to evolve. They are going to get a big challenge when they play this Saturday versus the Georgia Bulldog front seven. They're going to definitely get some looks they have not seen before. But when it comes down to it, it's not just about the legs and the running game. It's about that passing game. They're going to have to throw the football in this ball game to strike fast, especially if they get down a little bit, and to keep this thing alive. It's not just going to be Keishawn Butte. Actually, the number 7 receiver is Malik Neighbors, actually 8th in the SEC in yards. He's been the shining star right now. Has been Butte. Butte's been in and out of the lineup every once in a while, maybe kind of keeping in pace. Had some issues with the coaching staff early in the year, trying to figure out his fit into the offense. And Neighbors has done a great job of really taking that role and taking on that responsibility. LSU always puts out great talent at receiver, and he's just another one of those guys who's showing up on Saturday. Defensively, Harold Perkins, he is a wrecking ball. He's a machine. The defense has been a very big bright spot for the Tigers, and they always put athletes on that side of the ball. How will that defense react to Stetson Bennett, to the receivers, to the tight ends, the offensive line that's up for the offensive line of the year, and the running back, especially highlighted by Kenny McIntosh? Where are they going to fit in? How are they going to adjust to different looks they're going to get? Does Perkins, are they going to take him off, the edge as a pass rusher? They're going to put him as a spy for Stetson Bennett? Or are they going to try to match him in the flat with Bowers or Washington? Are they going to use his athletic ability and coverage and not pass rush? I personally think they need to use him as a pass rusher and help minimize that. You waste it, then he becomes a complete decoy. You put Bowers out there, he follows him, you remove him from the game. They need to keep him as an attacker, going after sets of Bennett, forcing Bennett to make mistakes as opposed to just being in space or marking up on one of the tight ends or a running back out of the backfield. Use Harold Perkins to let everyone else sort of flow in where they are. But they're gonna in for quite of a challenge with the Georgia Bulldogs, who quietly have a top 5 offense in the country. As they come to this ball game, we saw when they matched up against Tennessee shredded them up, down, left, and right. They did much better against Alabama at night, and that offense there from with Bryce Young at the helm. But that was a night game in Baton Rouge versus a noon game. Different story, more talent. When it comes to the Bulldogs, they haven't won an SEC championship game since 2017 when they beat Auburn. They've lost a few in a row. There's definitely that fire. It's not like they've won 3 or 4 in a row and it doesn't mean as much anymore. They haven't won one in a while. And I think that's a very burning, item in their heart and their soul when they come to this football game. They have a lot to prove. They're still playing technically for the number 1 seed. Is it them or is it Michigan? So I don't expect them to lay down in this football game except they'll come out with a little fire. They're going to run the football, use the tight ends, but it's going to be interesting to see which receivers other than Ladd McConkey step up. Is A.D. Mitchell healthy? How do they get him in the groove, ready for the playoff run? And how do they attack that LSU secondary? Try to avoid Perkins as much as you possibly can, maybe use him to a disadvantage, try to expose him in space, or use decoys to take him out of the play. Offensive line is going to have to be able to account for him and move the football. Georgia's offense should be able to run the ball up the middle. That Matt McIntosh and the rest of those tailbacks should have a nice afternoon. And what does the Georgia defense do? How do they address Jalen Daniels? Do they bring pressure? Do they minimize him? When I was looking at studying, I kind of look at him as like a Hendon Hooker who has a mobility from the backfield, takes that opportunity, and then uses his athletic ability to create a passing game. Got to look at it like that, where keep him in the pocket, force him to throw early, give him different, unique, exotic looks. This team, both sides of the football, have had slow starts the past few weeks. Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Georgia Tech. How does this team come out of the locker room and play with the fire? They played amazing versus Tennessee, but since then it's been a sluggish first quarter. You kind of get a couple stops, maybe give a lot of yards up, you're not looking fiery and aggressive offensively, not going down and imposing a will, not scoring as many touchdowns early, and kind of letting teams hang around. Which Georgia football team really shows up to start the football game? Are they going to turn it on? Or are they going to play like they played the past 3 weeks? In the end, I think they come out with fire. I think they come out with a little intensity and anger and a focus. They have a lot on the line. They can't mess around anymore. You're in basically the final stretch. Dogs win 38-17, and they put points up early and often and take out the Tigers and win a crown.
So, Fresh, Georgia to win this game is they're going to hand the ball on first down to McIntosh. Then second down, they're going to hand the ball to Edwards. And third down, if you get to third down, hand it to Milton. Reset, repeat. And again, hand the ball off, run the football, run the football, run the football. No one on LSU, this LSU defense, especially the rush defense here, is not the same as we've seen in years past. They don't have the ability. You brought up the fact that they're able to run the ball up the middle. And I saw the same thing too. I really hope that Georgia limits Stetson Bennett to like less than 25 passing attempts in this game. And that's not a knock against Stetson Bennett. I feel like if Stetson Bennett has to throw more than 25 times in this game, you're probably down. And you're probably having to pass a little bit more to play catch up. Shorten this game. Get the clock running. Get the clock going in Atlanta. Ride McIntosh, Milton, and Edwards there. Robinson, throw him a few carries as well. But realistically, Georgia just needs to ram the football down LSU's throat in this game here. If Jaden Daniels can't go, it's Garrett Nussmeier. I would kind of want to say, is this Niedermeyer from Animal House? I'm waiting for someone to show up with a pledge pin on his uniform and someone to hit a horse with a golf ball. It's going to take a thing like the Deltas for LSU to win this football game. You're going to have D-Day go out there, buy a old school Lincoln, turn it into the Deathmobile, ram it into the Georgia Dome or the Mercedes-Benz Dome, whatever it's called these days, and just completely destroy the homecoming parade like they did in Animal House for Georgia to lose this football game. Yes, it is going to take an act of that. Is it over? Yes, it was over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. It is over here, Fresh. LSU, if I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong on it. I'm wrong, and it is. I just don't see it for LSU. I'm sorry. You've had a great season. I agree with you. LSU way above where they should be at this point. I did not think LSU would be playing for the SEC title game this season with Brian Kelly coming in there. Jaden Daniels has played very, very well this season. But this is not the same type of LSU team that we're used to. This is not that team. They're a good team. They are a good team, but they aren't that team. And if they give Georgia their first loss of the year, you had me completely fooled, and I missed something big time in this game. So I got Georgia, and I got Georgia big in this game. So
I mean, the biggest thing is that LSU fans, look where we were a year ago at this time. We were hearing Brian Kelly, center court, talking about family and making a mockery of himself and looking like a fool, and everyone's laughing at him. And now you're playing for an SEC title. Um, and everything he's done, he has barely one recruiting cycle, putting together another solid class. And honestly, I don't think Jalen Daniels is really truly the quarterback, but he's played well and gotten him coached up quickly. You got a bright future coming, so you're way ahead of schedule. This is a great spot, and if they come out firing and playing well, then you know that Brian Kelly and this staff is the right group, and you should be real proud. But I think this is the Bulldogs' day. They're hungry for an SEC title. They haven't had one in a long time, and I expect them to really re-declare that they are the defending national champions.
all right, here, Fresh. Let's go to probably the best game of the week, probably the one that has the most interest out of everything in college football right now, and that is the Big 12 title game, Kansas State versus TCU. TCU is undefeated here, and Fresh spread right now is TCU is a 2.5 point favorite. Over under set at 62 points right now. I've been looking all week because last week we kind of thought maybe Adrian Martinez has been nursing a leg injury. He's been out since November 12th here. Will Howard has stepped up very nicely for the Wildcats of Kansas State, and they're also led by Deuce Vaughn. And Deuce Vaughn is, I would argue, probably one of the best weapons in all of college football this season. I don't think he gets enough love. I don't think he gets enough respect on his name. Will Howard throwing the ball all over the field. Adrian Martinez was very electric. But here's the thing, Fresh, and I'm going to start off here with TCU. When are we going to respect them? At what point are we going to respect what TCU has done this year? And I went back and I thought a lot about last season. I thought about Cincinnati again because it kind of is the team that comes back to my mind. All year long last year, we were waiting. Well, Cincinnati is going to lose this week. When they get to this game, they're going to lose this game. And they're not going to make the playoff, and they're going to be kept out of the playoff. Like, I'm looking at this time. At the time of the game, I know you put it out there like, TCU has only, I think, 2 ranked wins, you said. But at the time of the game that was played, they have 5 ranked wins on the season. When the game at the time, like Oklahoma was ranked on October 1st when they played. TCU put the boots to Oklahoma. Handed Kansas a big loss there. Oklahoma State, 2 overtime game. They handled a big loss. When are we going to start putting a lot of respect? Max Duggan has been one of the best stories of college football. I love this kid. 29 touchdowns in the year, 3 interceptions. He's taken a lot of sacks, which always concerns me. He's got 22 sacks in the year, but I've just been enamored by what he's been able to do with the football. The fact that he's not getting more Heisman love is appalling to me. I'm just so disappointed that people aren't like talking about him more. If you guys want to talk about Drake May and everything that Drake May's done for the Heisman, or you want to talk about, even I'll say Stetson Bennett there, because not to knock Stetson Bennett, but if you want to consider him for the Heisman, you really need to talk about Max Duggan too, because he's been so good for TCU. And without him this season, TCU is nowhere close to where they're supposed to be. So I just don't know. I just don't know here. Kansas State, I like this Kansas State team a lot here, Fresh. I really do. And I like this K-State defense. I really do like Austin Moore, the linebacker there. He's their leading tackler. I also like Kobe Savage in the defensive backfield. He's got 3 interceptions on the year. They got some dogs over there. They got some players in Manhattan, Kansas. I think this is a great matchup. I think this is an even matchup. Who's going to be able to run the football? Who's going to be able to win the point of attack? Who's going to be able to win the line of scrimmage? Let's give, how many coaching analogies can I give you? I can give you all this coach speak. But if Deuce Vaughn can catch the ball out of the backfield, if he can get some wiggle room into the TCU second level, then Kansas State's going to be the first team to upset TCU. But if Kendre Miller gets going, if Max Duggan does Max Duggan things like he's done all year long, man, I'm not betting against the Horned Frogs. So I'm making my pick now. I'll even give you a little bit more about what I'm thinking, but I'm going TCU in this game. I saw a great version of Max Duggan versus Iowa State. I've seen great versions against Texas. I've seen a great version against Baylor. All really good defenses. But I'm going the Horned Frogs in this game. I love it. I love this matchup. I'll turn it over to you for your pick.
How awesome has the Big 12 title game been the past few years?
Oh my God.
I mean, we had Iowa State and Oklahoma in a thriller. Then you get last year's amazing down to the half-yard line that determined a playoff spot, maybe even really shuffled up the order of the 4 playoff teams as well. And then this year, we had K-State and TCU. Both teams were unranked. Everyone kept waiting for them to both lose. Hey, K-State even lost to Tulane, and they are here playing in the Big 12 title game, and they are looking like a force. Martinez obviously had that early on season success, but Howard has jumped on and taken off and really shown a different variety of the offense. It's not as much with the legs, a little more from the arm. And it gave them a whole different dynamic that's helping Deuce Vaughn get more space and help the offense have a little more balance, which has definitely helped them carry forward and score some points at a rapid rate. Their defense, though, has been probably the best outside of Iowa State in the Big 12. They have been tackling well, shutting people down, limiting to field goals instead of touchdowns, and getting off the field. And that's a major testament to the coaching staff because everyone knows K-State does not recruit top 10 recruiting classes. They don't put together tons of 5 stars and 4 stars. They get guys who are 3 stars, 2 stars. They develop them. They have an amazing walk-on program. They've had it there since Coach Schneider was first around in his very first term. It's about guys who want to contribute and be there for the Wildcats, for their teammates, and they play their hearts out. And they execute and they play smart. And you go get guys from the JUCO ranks who are just trying for that second or third chance, and they put them in there. They plug and play, and the guys just blend together and they get it done. It's a proud program, and they're going to only get better. And with the success, I think going forward. When you look at TCU, you hit them right in the head. That when are they finally going to get the full respect they deserve? We all kind of laughed. That's like, man, they stomped Oklahoma, and that was kind of like, all right, it's a fluke, it's one game, and then they did it again, and they did it again, and they did it again, and then we all kept saying, well, they're just offense, they don't play defense, and they went to Texas on a Saturday night, and they played great defense and found ways to walk out with the W. They just getting it done. They have a groove. They found ways to win an ugly one at Baylor, kicking the last minute field goal. So they've done it defensively. They said it offensively. They did it ugly. They won with the pressure on them. They're battle tested every way possible right now. And I think Max Duggan's been able to wear it on his shoulders and not fade as the quarterback. Miller at the running back position, the offense, and just in general, they've been able to balance and withstand all the pressure that everyone thinks they're going to lose, everyone assumes they're going to lose, and they're fighting through. They're undefeated, and they don't have. I think it was Coach Lou Brown's like, what is about I don't care for sports writers' time. I'm all about destroying them. That's what he's here for. He's here about destroying sports writers' time. In the end, though, this is going to be, and unlike last year where it came down for a defensive effort and a stop, a very close football game, I got a feeling this is going to be a shootout. This is going to be like a 34-31, 37-30 ball game. TCU is going to have the ball last, and they're going to find a way to score a game-winning touchdown in dramatic fashion to seal the deal and officially punch their ticket without any doubt to the playoff. Horned Frogs, have a blast. Start celebrating now. You're going to accomplish a conference championship and punch yourself to the playoff. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an exciting one. Everyone tune in at noon. It's going to be a good game.
Here's the other reason why I want the Horned Frogs to win here, Fresh. It's because we haven't had a true, like we had Cincinnati last year as an underdog in the college football playoff. What makes March Madness so great? It's when Cinderella upsets the favorite. And I want that. I want that before we go to a 12-team playoff like they announced here earlier today. I want T I I really want TCU in the national title game. I don't know why I want that. I don't care if they play Michigan. I don't care if they play Georgia. I don't care if they play USC. I don't care if they play Alabama, Ohio State. I don't care who they play in the championship game. I want TCU in the national title game. And the reason I want that is I want the underdog story for once in football. I want the Rudy story. I want the Little Giant story. I want that team that nobody gives you a chance and you pull it off. Like 20 years from now, TCU is made, if they do that, this is made for a movie. Like real life just became a great movie with everything Max Duggan's gone through, with everything this team's gone through, with everything that they have done over this year. I just feel like this is a made for a movie here. I love this here. I love this game, and I think that this is just going to be a great one here. So I'm with you, Fresh. I I think it's going to be a shootout, and I think this is going to be the best game of the. This and the Fresno State Boise game are going to be the two games that I'll be most interested to watch.
Yep. Hey, everybody, we don't have many games left in the season, so cherish these before bowl season starts because we're about to have very little college football going forward for a long time.
Yep. And we'll be recording next Sunday to make sure that when they announce the playoffs, we are going to have to drop a new episode for you all and tell you guys, hey, this is what we got going on. These are the playoffs. And then we're also going to start breaking down bowl season. I can't believe this is here already, Fresh. Been one fun ride, though, man. It's been crazy. So it's going to be a fun one. I know it's kind of sad to think college football's over, but we're getting to the end. But we still got December.
Hey, bowl season, playoff, then March Madness and hostile takeover. Good times.
Oh, I can't wait for the hostile takeover. All right. Well, you guys have been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're part of Spinnable Sports, so make sure you go to spinnablesports.com. Yes, that is spinnablesports.com. I want to send a special thank you to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. So thank you, Drew. We appreciate everything that you do for this production here as well. Make sure you like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, Stitcher. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. You guys know the deal. Like, subscribe, leave us that 5-star review because you know Fresh and I were those 5-star prospects. If you're watching this on the YouTube with two guys with faces made for radio, make sure you're subscribing to that Spinnable Sports channel. Hit that notification bell and make sure you get notified every single time we drop a new episode. So we're going to still, even though college football season is starting to wind down, we will not stop this. We will still make sure we produce content for you guys to make sure that you get everything you could possibly want from us, including all sorts of fun stuff that we got planned for the new year in 2023. And make sure you're following us along on Twitter. Love interacting with you guys. It's been a great season to do that stuff. So enjoying it all along the way. And it's been a heck of a ride.
It has. Hope you all enjoy the great weekend. Can't wait to talk to you next week.
See y'all.
Bye, y'all.